Hello there, and welcome to Music Speaks. This podcast dedicates itself to how music impacts people's lives. For this show, we usually have two co-hosts. My name, of course, is Sean Rancunis, and my friend, Hunter Sigona. Today, we will sit down with a striving and talented artist. Brandon, I am so excited to meet you, and I'm sure Hunter is as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Like I mentioned right before we started, your bio is really, really powerful, and I hope that like our listeners get a sort of a small check of what I was able to read through because it was awesome to read.
Hmm.
And I think that leads to my first question, which sort of starts out with this. You say in the bio, hip hop is a gateway, and it gives those who listen to your music the ability to see in you. And I'm not the hugest listener of hip hop myself, but
Hmm.
this transparency you're describing, what do you mean by that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, the transparency is, exactly what it sounds like. I'm completely see-through. There are no lies. I tell no secrets in my music. I'm straightforward. Um, I pretty much just tell the truth, my truth, every time in my music. I just give the listener. I just like what can I say? My insecurities. I throw all out there on the forefront for them
Mhm.
to pretty much listen to and relate to. So it's pretty much just that transparency as a human being. Like, I don't hide nothing. I'm not ashamed to give the listener my 110%.
Right, right. And I love that about the way that you represented yourself in this bio and the way that
Hmm.
you crafted it in that way. So I thought that was really beautiful sentiment. And I'm going to pass the next question over to Hunter.
Sure.
Mhm.
So let alone me. My question is, I guess it's more of a bio obviously gives a background both in a biographical sense and musical sense. And my question is, do you think, for you personally, is there a genre or an artist in the pre-hip hop world that you feel was a particular game changer for the development of hip hop?
Um, there I could say there's a handful of hip hop artists that changed it can be the evolution of hip hop. Growing up, I was a big Bone Thugs and Harmony fan. I just liked the whole spin that they were tough, but also were soft in the sense of they harmonized with each other and they started like singing on the track as well as
Hmm.
rapping, and I thought that was really cool. Another cool one was, Rage Against the Machines. Those people, it's just the genres back in the day they mix so well, and then it
Hmm.
kind of corporates with how the music industry is now. Like Drake, he's one of the biggest, hip hop artists out there, and he sings and he also raps. You see what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
think you know, touching back on the Bone Thugs and Harmony thing, like they definitely, I feel like, opened up that genre. As far as that.
Yeah. And no, I could definitely see the progression. And you're right, Drake is massive now. Now, if you don't mind my asking, when did you grow up? Like, I don't know how old you are.
Uh, I I always been a fan of music. I always I always been a fan of music, whether it be like jazz or R&B. Jazz for the instruments, and then
Hmm.
R&B for like the feel. R&B gave you like a very warm feeling, you know what I'm saying? But as far as growing up per se, when my mother passed away, that's when I think I started to grow up. I fell off a little bit, but then I also grew up really fast, and music gave me an outlet
Hmm.
that I couldn't I couldn't put into words to people. I couldn't talk about it to other people so they could understand what I was saying, but anytime I could put it onto like a beat, it made sense and people got it. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And
Yeah.
I think it's sad to say, but it was probably the best thing to happen to me was, my mother passing away, because it molded me differently and it made me a better person than the person who I was previous to that. So it definitely pushed me to the hip hop world a lot more. So that's probably when I grew up.
Yeah, and that actually. Oh, sorry, there was a lag. I didn't know.
Oh, that's cool.
That actually fits really well with Sean's next question. Sean?
Sure. So, my next question is, Brandon, how did you initially find hip hop? Because you mentioned how it is not good as it is now. So, who did you listen to, and what group or artist inspired you to follow this path of your own?
Well, Nipsey Hussle is one of the artists that I listen to on a regular basis, and he's like a motivational speaker. He like talks to you through he's 100% relatable, and just a lot of the things he touches on, it touches home with me because he says a lot of pain. He has a lot of pain in his music, and that's very relatable to me. But touching up on groups who inspired me was Bone Thugs and Harmony again, because I grew up listening to them, and just the way that they can harmonize together and then also be tough at the same time and show both sides of the spectrum, I thought was really cool, and that inspired me a lot.
Right. And if you don't mind me asking, again, what, so from this artist to now you going ahead into your own sort of field, how do you sort of track your own progression as an artist? Have you learned any trades or any secrets through the time that you've been working?
I did. My first project I ever dropped was in 2014, and it's called Facing L's, and it's a triple entendre, meaning everyone faces losses in their life. I was smoking weed heavily back in the day, so I felt like I coped with that a lot. And then the team I was representing was a local label around here in Virginia Beach, and people threw up their L's, and it represented me. So I look back at that first project that I did, and it was full of pain. It was full of, I was angry, I was sad, I was depressed. I had all these emotions, and I could tell the difference when I make music now, because back then you could say scattered. There's things scattered everywhere, but now I feel like it's more composed, it's more like structured, um and just the topics that I'm talking about now, um you know you could tell that there was evolution and maturity from the first project to what I'm producing now.
Right. Yeah. I'm gonna pass the baton back over to Hunter, and Hunter is gonna talk to you about more artists. So Hunter, take it away.
Yeah, so I guess less than the artists themselves. Obviously, like you said, any song, when any artist creates any song, they're obviously trying to convey a message, and that message is different for every person. And how do you think artists should respond when the people that are listening to their music maybe take the message they're trying to convey and distort it and use it in the way that they want, or maybe take their message in the wrong direction? Because obviously the artist has a particular message, but that's not always how the public receives that message.
That's a good question, but it's kind of like with everything, how it can be flipped, kind of like with I don't want to jump into that, but for the artist, I think it would be best to maybe rewrite some of the messages that he put out or she put out that got flip-flopped. You see what I'm saying? Like, if they're able to reach out to their fan base, which is mostly probably the most important part of being an artist, is your listeners. I don't like calling them fans, but your listeners, the people who are giving you their undivided attention, to listen to what you got to say and connect with you. So it's probably the most important part is to connect back to your listeners, and just reach out to them and hope that they understand the second time coming around.
It's always interesting because I always wonder, you know, when artists hear people talking about their own music, and I wonder if they think in their head, that's not what I meant at all, or they really got what I was talking about.
True, yeah, and then sometimes it works out for, you know, the best if it's not what you were going for at first, but it seems to be catching and people love it. You see what I'm saying? Like it can still, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, you know what I'm saying? It can work, but it can also backfire against you, you know. Especially, you know, especially now, you know, everybody is so opinionated. They, you know, they want to throw out how they feel about it, and the internet will take it and run with it. And you know, sometimes before your career starts, it can end, you know.
Yeah, that's a very good point, right? It really brings in that idea of not viewership power, but like the power of the press, right? Which is huge in the music business.
And overall life, I mean, the power of press, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone, no one is safe from it, although it could be a good thing. And actually, you know, that speaks to the concept of truth, which is something that Sean wants to talk to you about.
That's right. And my question, Brandon, is about how you say that music, you want to represent your music as truth, and that truth can be told through your own eyes. What do you hope listeners or people can learn from you through your music, and even be inspired to start creating like yourself?
I just hope that people that listen to the music, they can relate to it. And I plan on touching the people who have gone through the mud and hardships and understand that it does get better, you know. And you know, like we were touching up before we started, you know, the tortoise won the race, not the hare. So you're gonna go through those problems in the beginning. It's gonna be, you know, depressing. It's gonna be hard, but it's the people who are persistent and consistent enough to withstand, you know, life's hardships are the people who get rewarded. And that's who I really want to reach out to, because there's people all over the world that, you know, have nobody that feel like they understand themselves and what they're going through. And me as a youth, after, you know, my mother passing away, I felt like no one understood what I was going through and understood what I was trying to say. So when I wrote it down and it sounded how it sounded coming out of the speakers, people started to actually understand that. And if I had a artist relatable enough to go through things like that, I think that could have helped. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you've learned from those experiences of telling people your truth, and listening through your own relationships, and discussing those things out in your own music.
Yes, sir. I actually reached out to a artist, a hip hop artist. He was big, but then he just dropped out of the scene. And I asked him, you know, how do you become a better artist? How do you become a better musician, a rapper? He said, you become a better person. He says, once you become a better person, everything else falls into place. He says, don't concentrate on trying to be the best rapper out. He said, concentrate on being the best human being that you can be, and everything else will fall into place.
Yeah. I think people should also learn that in life too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. That's true. That's true. It just, you know, it's universal information. You know, it can be used everywhere throughout the grid, wherever you're at, whatever you love to do. You know, you just use, like we were talking, the algorithm. You use the algorithm, you know, to your benefits. You know, it's gonna be hard. I mean, it's life. There's no blueprint to how you live your life, but you know, there's a blueprint on how to be a good human being.
Right. And
that's very true.
I love how when we talk about rap and we talk about hip hop, the spoken word aspect, and the way that it can craft language and craft inspiration for others to sort of just feed off of. Because I'm a trumpet player. My friend Hunter down there, he's a clarinet player. So we understand through instrumental music, and we understand, but there is something really valuable through even just spoken word within rap and within hip hop. So if you don't mind me asking one last question before I hand over the next one to Hunter, has there ever been a moment where when you were working a word just passes by and you say, oh, this is something I want to hold on to. This is something really important to me?
Yeah, there's been a couple times where, ideas and thoughts flash through my head. Sometimes either when I'm in the studio recording that specific song, something will pop in my head like, oh yeah, that's gonna be good. People are gonna understand this, and that's gonna be very relatable, because that's the main goal, is being relatable to your listener, building that bond between you and the listener. And it's just, connections, man. That's what we're here for, is connecting with people all over the world.
I think that's actually why I started the podcast, was to bring people together through all kinds of music. And like you said, with the idea of a blueprint, there's no really blueprint for being a good person. But I love how you said that becoming a rapper and finding your true inspiration is also learning how to be a good person. And I love how you said that perfectly. So thank you for saying that.
Yes, sir.
I want to hand over to the next question to Hunter. Hunter, take it away.
Sure. Yeah, and I want to add one thing to that. I think one of the big takeaways of that last segment was I feel like rap, hip hop, vocal music in general has a little bit of a benefit, or not benefit, a little bit of an advantage on instrumental music in terms of conveying your message. Not that instrumental music can't convey a message, but if you play a particular chord, that the sound of that chord, the feeling that's evoked from it is a little bit it's subjective. It won't make the same people feel the same thing. You might play a certain set of beats, or we, like I said, play a certain chord, and that means something different to different people, but the spoken word is very precise. And actually the English language is considered the most specific language in the world. We have the ability in English to dictate exactly what we mean more than other languages in the world. And I think that's something that hip hop artists particularly take full advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. The way you say it is the pitch, it's like trying to read a text message. I can't understand how you mean it through the text message, but if I can hear how you're saying it, I definitely could understand a lot better. But definitely, man, the spoken word, it's a cappella, it's clean, it's right to you, it's right now, it's no other distractions, it's exactly what I'm saying, and how I'm saying it is how it's meant to be sound, or or how it's meant to be said. So you're correct on it's right on point, it's sharp, it's accurate. I don't want to say there's no mistakes, but the impurities are gone at that point, because it's just you and the listener. There's nothing else to distract them. It's like I'm listening to your words, but ooh, did you hear that chord? Like, man, let's run that back. And it's like now you're lost in the message, and now you're listening to the instruments. Nothing wrong with that, but trying to get a message across, that's why spoken word is
exactly.
So, poetry, it used to be poems. It used to be people coming together in the Coliseum and, creating these poems, and people just like, vibing to the poem.
Exactly. That's I like that imagery, actually. That's very good. Yeah, definitely. And that sort of brings me to my final question of this first segment, which is, knowing where the genre that you exist in, this hip hop rap genre, knowing where it's been, knowing where it is now, where do you see it heading in the future?
Well, everything goes full circle. Everything comes full circle. So, it once was this way, now it's evolving, but it's gonna return back to that same, back in the day it was this. Because you look at it, like, retro clothes are the thing now, like old vintage clothes is the thing. And back in the day it was, we can't wait for the futuristic stuff, but now it's like kids are dying for vintage clothes and vintage glasses and all types of oldie things, because everything's full circle, in my belief. I think that everything will return full circle. So yeah, it once was storytelling hip hop. Now it's, uh, yeah, that's where my name comes from. It's my first name, Brandon Law, and then I just put them together, Blaw. Like this music now is just like blah 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 blah. They just saying stuff that sounds good. Most of the time, people just are listening to the beat, and that's where I think the hip hop is at. But there's certain hidden gems in hip hop. Just like there's certain hidden artists in like comic book strips. They go venture off and they create their own comic, and it's like this crazy new thing. That's the same with anything. Chefs, cooks. You play you're in a band, but you don't get no shine. You break off by yourself. You blow up.
Right.
It's like that. So full circle. I believe that the music scene will return full circle, and it will go back to storytelling, and I hope just to be one of those storytellers.
Well, you certainly seem to be in the right place for it, so I certainly hope it happens, or at least maybe you could be one of the catalysts to help it happen.
Yes, sir.
And having said that, now we will take a quick break, and we'll be right back, and we'll talk about some of the songs you wanted to talk about. So quick little, I guess, plug to us. If you'd like to support this podcast, please go to anchor.com and search Music Speaks Podcast to find a way to reach out to us. And you'll find our social media and ways that you can contribute to this podcast. And we will be right back, sponsored by our friends at Anchor.
We're back with our friend and yours, Brandon Law. Brandon, you got some songs for us. And the first song that I get to talk about is called No Sleep, R.E. And I really like this song a lot. And I wanted to ask, when you started to write this song, what kind of beat do you look for in a song?
Well, it starts with the BPMs, and that stands for beats per minute. And that's the catchy frequencies that stimulate and arouse, our mind, and it grasps our attention to the beat. Because my attention span has shortened over the years of, just saturated music that, if it doesn't catch my attention in 8 seconds, I'm already next. Next. I don't like how it started. Next. And so that's what I look for. I look for those BPMs that soothe, the ear, that just make you hold up. There's going to be a drop, and I need to at least hear what that drop's going to be like before I decide whether I want to switch the song or not.
Right.
But, yeah, that's what I look for at first.
And you mentioned that in your bio, and I know we discussed this briefly, that there are truths in the music. And at the beginning of the song, you talk about how you cannot sleep. And that's the issue in the song that you're addressing. Now, what is causing that issue? Is it more of an internal problem, or is it an external problem that you're looking at?
I kind of say it's both. The song's called No Sleep, and the first things that come out of my mouth are, oh man, I don't never get to sleep. You know what I'm saying? That was the first bars that I give the listener, and it's pretty much saying to the listener that, I've been grinding, working 25/8, putting my 10,000 hours into my craft, and with this business it comes sacrifices, and it just so happens to be sleep is what I'm sacrificing. We were talking about earlier, it's the marathon, it's the slow grind, and it's outworking the next artist. Those are the people who get some time, or some listeners. It's the people who are grinding while the other people are not. So I say, I'll never get to sleep. It can be eternally and externally.
Right. And there was a lot of really powerful messages in the song. And you had sent us 2 versions of the song that includes profane language and one that doesn't. And I wanted to ask you, because I found listening to both of them had unique qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Where I felt like when the one without profanity felt like it was missing something,
Mm-hmm.
but and missing something in a way that you're sort of like, like it's sort of like it's like a puzzle piece. You're looking at it
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you see it and it doesn't, and you know it's there, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
actually see it, And I thought that was really interesting that you were able to share both of those versions with us. So I wanted to ask you, do you like one over the other, or do you prefer both versions because they both contribute to the image of the song?
The second one, I agree and I appreciate both of them,
Mm-hmm.
but I like the rawness of the song and how straightforward I am about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it goes out to yelling like, I don't get no sleep. It's catchy. Like the radio edited version is for listeners. It's if you're riding in the car, you don't want to hear a curse word every other. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they're spaced out enough to where you're not missing a lot of the song, and you can
Mm-hmm.
still kind of vibe with what you're listening to.
Right.
And I just like the willingness that I'm willing to compromise, you know, my song for listeners. I appreciate the fact that I'm willing to do that, and that touching back on the message, like they can take some of the message and flip it. You know what I'm saying? If they
Mm-hmm.
don't hear the straightforward version,
Right.
but I do appreciate both of the versions.
Right. Cool. Yeah, and I definitely appreciated them because I saw them in different sort of lights, and I thought that
Mhm.
was really interesting how you were able to do that for us for this time. I'm going to pass the next song over to Hunter, and here we go.
All right. So your second song that we were going to talk about is called "How Does It Feel to Be Rich?"
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this was intentional. I don't usually listen to hip hop that often. My sister would know much better than me. But were you going for a little bit of an 80s vibe with this song? Because that's how I felt. Maybe I was totally
Mm-hmm.
off.
Oh no, you're definitely right. I think I would have strived in the '80s. So a lot of the time, if a beat pops out to me, I try to get on that '80s vibe, that '80s feel.
Yeah.
The fashion scene was awesome in the '80s. I loved it, so that's why I say I would strive. But depending on my mood and the environment around me, that plays a big part of the vibe that I give to the beat and that I give to the listener.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's something that's also, you mentioned at the beginning, you listen those those crucial 8 or 10 seconds at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. I feel like with this song, particularly, you have the opening repeated segment. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a flute, but it's definitely sort of synthetic. It's really interesting. I think it would catch people's attention,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the 80s feel that it comes with. How did you pick that beginning?
So the beat originally wasn't so repetitive like how it is. The
Mm-hmm.
engineer and I kind of like skipped it around a couple times, played with it, remixed it, slowed it down until we found what you got now, the final product. And we were just like, that repetitiveness is gonna be catchy enough for the listener to at least get to the hook,
Mm-hmm.
or at least get to what I'm about to say. And then they'll decide whether or not that they want to press next or not. So it definitely was a little bit of ingenuity and a little thought behind it, but we messed it around a couple times and then we finally got to the one that we liked, and we are like, yeah, this is it.
Mm-hmm. So I guess in addition to that, then would you say that trial and error is a big part of working with beats and with a sound engineer?
Oh, of course. And trial and error is a human being thing.
Mm-hmm.
Learn best through trial and error. So again, another piece of the algorithm is trial and error, and you can put that towards everything that you do. But yes,
Yeah.
definitely helped me, and the engineer helps me and my team. It helps a lot.
Very cool. Because you like you said, it's a human thing. We do that in everything. So I imagined it was similar to that. And something else that I do like about the song is the title is really interesting. It's this question that you don't quite answer, but you can imagine what an answer would be. And so my question is, and I usually like to ask this to writers and composers is, did the title come first and you wound up writing the lyrics, or did you write the lyrics and then decide that that line was going to be the title?
For me, it's a feeling at first. You know, I gotta feel the vibe from the beat at first. Then you know, then I go into the rhythm and I find like the tempo that I want to do, and then I go in and write the lyrics. So it definitely goes feeling, lyrics, then the title for the song. It, you know, because again, it threw out 80s vibe to me. So that's
Right.
kind of what, you know, I was thinking James Bond when I was writing it, when I was listening to it. And then I was like, how does it feel to be rich? Man,
Yeah.
you know, that'd be dope. Like if I was like a secret agent type thing, right? I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, definitely. So definitely feeling, then it goes into the lyrics, and then I write my song title.
And the beat comes before all of that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The BPMs, the beats per minute. Yeah.
Interesting.
Gotta catch the listener's ear before you even get to the words.
That's interesting, because I find that always is that's always a question I wonder with musicians is, I mean, I don't do much composition myself, so for me, it's not a question I usually ask or that I have to ponder, but it's the chicken or the egg thing, you know. Now that we know your sequence of writing, a lot of people say, like, you know, oh, I came up with all of the wordplay for the word craft first and then wound up writing the melody. And some people say I had a melody that I came up with first and then set lyrics.
There's no algorithm to writing music, because a lot of artists will do that. Will come up with a rhyme scheme, like a humming scheme, and then slowly, kind of like the puzzle, will slowly put words that fit right in that spot of your humming sequence. You know what I'm saying? So definitely it varies from artist to artist. And you know what I said earlier, you know, my environment, if my environment is affecting me a lot, then that will come into play as well when, you know, composing or writing a song.
Yeah. Which leads to my final question, which is, if you, and you sort of touched on it already, if you had to answer the question in the title, what do you imagine the answer would be?
How does it feel to be rich? A feeling everybody probably feels. Like, it's just relatable. You know, like, you know, everybody, I'm not gonna say everybody, but a big chunk of the world will always, you know, damn, I what it feels like to be rich, you know, like whatever they're doing, they're not doing what I'm doing right now. They're not sitting here wondering what it's like to be rich.
No, you're so right. I was just curious because, you know, some people would take that, you know, that approach to it, right? Where it's like, you know, it's not what this is.
Yeah,
and then some people would be like, you know, it might not be as good
as you think.
You know, some people would take the cynical approach to it. And right. So I was curious, when you were going for this, what was your vibe? Because you mentioned, like, you know, the James Bond type, and that's obviously the positive view of it.
Yeah, facts. And you know, that's crazy, because that's the whole video scheme is for the song is how does it feel to be rich? You'll be seeing me doing a bunch of cool, fancy stuff, but then you'll also see the dark side of what money can do to a person and how it can manipulate people, and it how it really isn't everything. You know, everybody wants to be rich, but is everybody willing to take the sacrifices that come with being rich? You know, like there's a lot of
the danger,
the demons, you know, there's a lot of vices that can occur when you obtain a big amount of money. You know, it's responsibility comes into play. Like, are you even responsible to be rich? You know?
Right.
So definitely I can't wait to release the video because people are gonna see the twist of, you know, the actual title of how does it feel to be rich.
Mm-hmm. That's a great answer. You know, there's the old phrase, it's French, noblesse oblige, right? Nobility obliges. So people who are of that, you know, that world, they have a responsibility to act accordingly, right? And that's the part that people forget. So I found it's a very thought-provoking concept, title, and image. Sounds like that you're, you know, the image you're describing. So I really enjoyed that quite a bit. And I enjoyed this whole discussion, and I really hope that we get a chance to talk to you again, because I think, you know, you're very, very grounded in your musical, what's the word I'm looking for, in your approach to writing and word crafting. So I thank you for being on here.
I appreciate you guys for having me and, you know, making the time to, you know, sit down and jot down these questions for me and just, you know, expand your horizons. You know, you guys say you don't really listen or do the hip hop scene, but for me, it's a blessing to be asked to be interviewed and to be, per se, a representative for hip hop music. You know, I hope it opens your guys' eyes a little bit to be more, you know, open-minded to it, because, you know, rap and hip-hop in general now is just, you know what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It is what it is. And, you know, I just hope it gives you guys another look to, like, there are hidden gems in, you know, in rap and hip-hop. There are people who are still human beings that do hip-hop and rap. You know, Peter Parker's uncle, you know, said it the best.
Completely. Sean?
With great power comes great responsibility. So,
Right.
Very true.
So without any further ado, thank you, Brandon, and hopefully we'll have you come back next time.
I appreciate it, man. You guys have a good one.
You too. Thank you, Brandon.
Yes, sir.